Hello, everyone. My name's Hank Sutala. I'm here with Casey McBride, and we're playing with our new little intros that we're testing out that are so much fun. And to
Such fun.
It is so much fun. And today's topic is magical moments, specifically around manifestation. And these have been coming up on our talks all the time where we're sharing different stories where it was just like this amazing set of circumstances that are just magical. And it's worthwhile to talk about. And if you have your own little stories of inspiration, let us know. We'd be happy to have you share yours as well. So let me also add this real quick. But go ahead. Is there anything that stands out? I think both of us had little magical moments even today, if I recall our pre-talk correctly.
Yeah. Well, yesterday you were talking about, you guided us through a little exercise of uh, playing with time and feeling the flow of time in between our hands. And it was an exercise to slow up and speed down time so that we could accomplish like a certain task. And so I went through the exercise as we were doing it, and it was really enjoyable. And I was really feeling the sensations and was just having fun with it. And that later that night, um, I had the live stream meditation that I do, and I was kind of doing a few things. Like I was cooking, and I knew I had about an hour before the meditation was scheduled to start. And I looked at this closet that I keep all the extra food that I have, because I have the tendency to go out when things are on sale and like buy a whole bunch of pasta sauce or beans or whatever, so just to save money. But then I forget about the stuff, and it was all just piled up in this closet. So I walked by the thing. I'm like, it's way past due that I need to organize this closet, and it was bad. Like 2 years worth of accumulation. And so I looked at the thing and I went, you know what? I'm motivated to do this right now. But if I do this, this is going to take well over an hour, and I'm not going to make it to my massage on time. And I really wanted I like to have time to get into the space and relax before I start working with doing any kind of guided meditation or whatever it is. So I remember that exercise. So I sat down. Sorry, I'm going to take us into a little zoomed out mode there. Sorry, that was bothering me. But I remember that exercise, and I was sitting there feeling the flow of time between the hands. And I set the intention that I was slowing time down or expanding time, or however you want to put it, so that I had, so that this hour or over an hour's worth of work I was going to accomplish in 15 minutes on clock time. And then I would have plenty of time to rest and relax before the meditation. And started working, and got all the work done, completely organized it, like definitely well over an hour's worth of work. Looked at the clock, 15 minutes on the dot had passed. So that was a cool little story, just from a little exercise we did yesterday.
Yeah, and if anybody's interested, if you go to the YouTube channel, you can check that out. That was a whole conversation on time, and I think around the 40-minute mark, I walk people through a little exercise where you can learn how to start manipulating and bending time. And the first time I ever did it, it was just really amazing because it was like 4 hours worth of stuff that got done in less than an hour. And everybody that I was with, the guy looking at, he's like, we must have done something wrong with making this ormus. This is like hours of settling, and this shouldn't look like this now. And it's like, haha. It was all just a little time manipulation.
So talking, I know I'm kind of just jumping from story to story here, but
Oh, you're fine. That's the whole point of this subject. So we're good.
So I've wanted to share this with the group for the Spirit Lodge, but I wasn't able to because we had to go virtual and we didn't have as much time to talk. But it was I think it was the last in-person Spirit Lodge. After the lodge, we were talking about signs and receiving signs from the universe. And I like to share my experience. I think it's helpful for us to share this kind of thing, especially in groups. It helps to lift each other up. And that's always my purpose for sharing these stories, not to like brag or anything, but I want to inspire other people. But as people were sharing these really cool stories of receiving these signs, I knew I had probably thousands of stories, but nothing came to my mind. And so I just sat there and listened, which was still a wonderful experience. But I was like, man, I have all these awesome stories I could have shared. And so as I got in my car to leave there, the drive home, I want to say it's like a little under a 20-minute drive. And I probably it's all back streets. So I probably go through about 30 stoplights. And as I pull out and I'm turning onto the road to go towards home, I thought to myself, I'm about to receive a sign from spirit right now. And what had been kind of going on in my head at this point was like, I really think I'm on the right path doing this shamanic stuff and reaching more people with the messages that I have and furthering my training, all this stuff. Just had the feeling like I'm really on the right path. And then I had that thought, I'm about to receive a message from spirit. And so I was driving and I went through the first lights that were green and no problem. And then another light I went through was green, and then another one. And I'm like, wow, I'm not hitting any red lights today. So then another one I went through and another one. And I go, am I going to go through like all these lights and not hit a single red light? And I kept going one after the other after the other. And at this point, I know I'm like, okay, spirit's communicating this message to me. Never before in my life have I made a drive this far through that many lights where all of them were green. And even up to the last one, I was just in the state of amazement as I was pulling into the very last light to turn into our little cul-de-sac area. And green the entire time. All 30 plus lights were green. And to me, that was this message of like, yes, go, go, go. You're going in the right direction. Keep doing it. Like, this is it. And that was it wasn't as beautiful as like an eagle flying by or anything. But to me, it was still magnificently beautiful, and it was a very clear message that came through from spirit.
So, absolutely. And the biggest thing is that you were noticing it. Like if you weren't paying attention, that would have just been like a quick drive home and you weren't even showing up for that experience. So that's where like the real magic is that we're showing up to see the magic. We're showing up and recognizing we are the magic and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. With the universe is always communicating with us, always giving us signs, and we're always manifesting things. There are always synchronicities, but we have to be, like you said, present. We have to be conscious and aware of these things in order for them to truly, for us to register them as being communication from spirit. And it really shifts the energy when you start. The more you start to pay attention, the more communication you will notice, and it's like you're receiving more and more and more from the universe.
Right, and it's not just receiving more. Like some of the magical moments we're actually creating. We're putting the statement into the universe that creates it. I was sharing pre-air with Casey. I had just gone to Aldi's, right, and my son. They've been like living on cinnamon rolls. They just love it. Like every morning they get up and they're like making cinnamon rolls, and my son's like, "You got to get us more cinnamon rolls." And I go, and there's like nothing there, right? And I end up going out to the car, and I had forgotten the list, and I forgot like one thing. And I go back in for the salad dressing for my wife, and from the angle I was at, I noticed that up underneath where the cinnamon rolls were, there was like a little a box, and I go over and pull it down, and there's like a whole case of cinnamon rolls. Now, was it there the first time? I don't know, but I had already messaged home that it's like, sorry guys, there's no cinnamon rolls. And Max is like, can you check one more time? It's like, well, was it his will that there must be cinnamon rolls that put that box there? But there's like little magical moments like that I'm not going to discredit that. Like I was there and I was on a mission specifically for it. I'm sure I would have seen it, but there it was the second time I go in, and that little magical moment was there for me.
And like they don't have to be these big. Well, I think. But I think saying like they're big or small moments is not a correct way to put it. But like sometimes we have things that we perceive to be like grander and more powerful messages. But the subtler things like that, like, just recognizing that you manifested that, you put that out there in spirit, the universe responded. Recognizing that is so important, whether it's cinnamon rolls or some giant thing, a new job or whatever it is coming into your life. Give equal gratitude and attention to all of those magical moments.
Right. And the biggest thing when you're looking to create these in your life, have no point of view about anything happening, and also you go into it without the fear of being judged. And I'll give you a story from Alaska. We were up in Alaska and we were fishing at this place where my wife's father, he was out there fishing all day, and the only thing we had to eat if we didn't have this fish was something I didn't want to eat, right? So he's just out there fishing, and I'm thinking, do I know a spirit? Do I know anybody in the spirit world that could physically manipulate things? And I remembered from Fellowships of the Spirit, there was this one being named Ho-Ho, was one of the spirit guides for one of the teachers, that when someone says, well, I don't believe he was really channeling Ho-Ho, if you're really there, Ho-Ho, give me your sign. And like her book bag that was on a chair like flew off. And so I remembered that. I'm like, okay, so we can call Ho-Ho in. And the way you called him in is you had to sing Kumbaya in a group. Granted, that's a point of view, but I told my wife, and at the time she knew I was crazy, but not this crazy. I'm like, all right, so I know there's this being, and we can call him in, and maybe he can help your dad catch a fish. And she's like, what? And I'm like, just bear with me. Let's sing Kumbaya. So I have my wife there singing. We're all quiet, like Kumbaya, my lord, like singing this. And I hear Ho Ho come in and says, 3 more casts, you catch fish. So I'm like, great. So her dad's out 2 casts and he stops. He gives up in that moment and he's walking in because he gave up. And I'm like, no, no, no. You got to cast 1 more time. You're going to catch the fish. And then he's like, okay, I'll try 1 more time. Throws it out, catches the fish.
Oh, speaking of Alaska, I have a few manifestation stories from my last trip in Alaska. One was not as interesting a story as that, but we were on a ferry from Juneau to Skagway. And I had thought, because my cousin had taken the same exact ferry previously, and he said it was like a 2-hour ferry ride. And so we get on the ferry, and then I don't think we even like checked, but we looked, and instead of 2 hours, it was like a 6-hour ferry ride when it should have been the same distance. What we didn't know is that they were stopping in a port to drop people off, pick people off, etc. And that was why we had like the extra time, because they had to stop there, load on and off, and all that. And we're sitting on the boat waiting, because we can't. Obviously, we're not going to get off and then risk, missing it. Or I don't even think you're allowed to get off. But I'm sitting talking with my friend there, and I was talking to him about manifestation. And we were sitting in a little cafeteria eating, and just talking to him about manifestation. And he was just kind of interested in following along. And I was like, I'll give you an example, because we're getting impatient at this point. We've just been sitting, not moving anywhere. We're ready to go. And I said, okay, so I'll show you how manifestation works. And just with total confidence, declared it to the universe. In 5 minutes, they're going to make an announcement that we're getting ready to leave. And I looked at the clock that was in the little cafeteria area, and I kept looking up every minute. And then 5 minutes came by, and they came on with the announcement saying, we're getting ready to depart, but our final destination is Skagway. And and then we left, and it was wonderful. But yeah. So not as
no, but that's just as potent. Whether or not, like the specialness that we create for it or not create for it is, it's still just as magical a moment.
Absolutely.
And I have one more for Alaska, and also involving my wife's dad. I had been one of my projects for fellowships. We had to do some sort of project, and my friend Dave Orlaski and I had learned how to build sweat lodges. And one of the things I wanted to go along with the sweat lodges to get a peace pipe. And so I was looking for on all these shops, and of course they're never anywhere. And we were in this little village called Nanilchek. And all there is in this thing is like a cemetery, a church, and like a gift shop. There's like 3 buildings. And that's how it's like on the way to Homer. It's like in the middle of nowhere. And I go to the lady and I tell her what I'm looking for. She's like, oh, honey, you'll never find one. Like a true peace pipe is always just gifted. It's never sold. I'm like, oh, and she's like, what are you going to use it for? And I told her, and I said, well, one of my teachers is Enmaga. And I told her what we were doing. And she's like, well, you should talk to my mother. And she takes me in the back, and as we pull this curtain over, there's like this smoke billowing out because this lady was like a chain smoker. And I tell her what I'm looking for. She's like, come with me. And she takes me upstairs, opens this drawer, and gives me this beautiful pipe that was lastly used in a farewell ceremony. And it's kind of a modern pipe. So it had like caribou antler, but then it was also metal. There was like some metal tubing in it. So it wasn't like an ancient native pipe or anything like that. But she just so happened to be part of the same clan as Ed McGaw. And she gave me the pipe, and she gave me a little bag. She's like, don't open it. Next time you see Ed, give it to him. And so like, it was like a year and a half before I saw Ed again. I actually drove 3 hours to, where he was teaching somewhere to meet him for lunch, and I gifted it to him. And when he opened it up, it was a beautiful ivory piece of ivory carved into a wolf head, and then he made it into jewelry and mailed it back to her.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
and the whole time I get this pipe, and her dad knows that I've been trying to get this thing, and he goes, oh, it's unbelievable, the coincidence. Because now, if you don't know, my wife is from Germany, and so I'm kind of saying how he would say it. I'm like, there's no coincidence. And even the lady's like, honey, this wasn't a coincidence. This is a God moment. And but I think that all these things that happen around my father-in-law, there are all these little things that are like, you can't unknow the magic. Like you can say like my son-in-law's nuts, but you can't unknow like the thing that just happened, and it gets under your skin, and I think it starts to change people when they see things like that happen, which is why we share these stories. To your point, it's to offer inspiration and to give you the motivation maybe to slow down a little bit and see what are the magical moments in your life, and even telling the universe, hey universe, I would love to receive some of these magical moments, send them my way. And just that attention and putting the energy out there is going to start bringing those to you.
And pay attention. They're everywhere. Don't we going back to not having expectations. If you have an expectation that the magical moment is supposed to happen out in the forest and some beautiful thing's going to happen, then you're going to miss out on all of the magical moments that happen while you're at home or out in the city, you're grocery shopping or wherever you are. So don't have any expectations of how they show up. Just be ready to receive them and be always paying attention to the magic that's continuously here.
Yeah, being in the space of allowance is different than I'm going to go out there and find me a magical moment.
Yeah.
That's a totally different energy than just showing up and receiving the experience. There's nowhere you have to go. All you have to do is be and be willing to receive, and that's it. There's no magic to it. Well, there is magic to it. But for those of you watching, if you'd like to ask questions and comments about manifestation, or if you have a magical moment you'd like to share and you want to come on air and share it with us, let us know. We can post a link for you to join the broadcast, and you can share your little magical moments, which is what this segment is about. It's about inspiring people and maybe giving some tools to how to allow these things in your life. So if you want to be brave, in fact, I think I want to post a link. I'm going to do it. All right. So if you want to be brave and join us, I'm going to post a link in the comments. All you have to do, you want to be on Firefox or Chrome, and you want to make sure before you come on, check your camera and everything. And once you're in the studio, you also want to close out of your Facebook. I find that if you have Facebook open and you hear us, sometimes it does some weird funky thing with audio. So if you do want to be a brave soul and come on, please let us know. Click the link and show up, and we'll add you to the broadcast. But no pressure or anything like that. You can also just make a comment.
So going back to we were Alaska, my trip after Alaska, I like to go on at least one big hiking trip a year. And the following year, which was last year, I went to the Smoky Mountains. And this was the first year I'd really gotten into foraging for like wild forage edibles, like mushrooms and like ramps and stuff like that. And so going out there, I kept thinking about like I'm gonna find some mushrooms that I can forage and I can cook up and that I can identify first off, and then I can cook up and we can all eat and it'll be like wonderful. So I was just focused on like I'm gonna find these mushrooms when we go out there, and then one of my friends that was with us, she really wanted to find some like nice pieces of quartz on one of the hikes. And so we get out there, had our first night, and then it was our first day where we got up to go on our first hike through the mountains. And we're walking along, and this time I really just have my eyes peeled everywhere, like where are these mushrooms at? And wasn't seeing a single mushroom of any kind anywhere. And then I guess she was in a better space of receiving than I was at this particular moment, because she finds a piece of quartz, and then just like we look and all over like the side of this mountain, there's just like huge pieces of quartz, little pieces of quartz, all different kinds of like quartz crystal. And she just spent all this time sitting there like trying to gather them up and everything. And then so then I was just kind of excited for her, and we kept going along on the hike and was just enjoying the nature, not thinking about it anymore. And then when I was really I think we were getting ready to sit down and kind of like take a break. So I was already, I think, becoming a little more, like even more relaxed than I was. And then right in that moment, I look over, and on the side of this log, there's a nice cluster of oyster mushrooms right there. And so it was our first hike, and both of us are like mission for going out at some point during the Smoky Mountains. On our first hike, we both found our thing and brought them back, and we had a delicious meal.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that was really cool. But I've done that a lot as far as like working with wild forage edibles. But I find for me, I have to already be introduced. I mean, I don't have to, but thus far, if I'm already introduced to the energy of that plant, then I have a much easier time manifesting it than if it's a plant I've just read about and I've never actually like physically come into contact with. For example, ramps, right? Well, ramps are everywhere in Ohio right now, and they're getting bigger and bigger and more delicious. But going out, if I just sit there and I'm like, okay, I'm going to walk that corner and there's going to be ramps there, I'll find ramps. And then like blackberries, I'm comfortable with foraging blackberries. I could be on a hike and not see a single blackberry bush, and then as soon as I sit there and I go, you know what, I'm going to find blackberries right now. Then the same thing, I'll like turn a corner and there's a blackberry bush right there and I get to eat them. But morel mushrooms, it's like a prized wild edible mushroom, one of the most prized that come up in the springtime, should be soon in Ohio. And last year I was like, I really, I kept putting it out there. Every hike I would go on, this is the hike, I find them. But I've never even seen a morel mushroom in person. I've only seen pictures of them. I've never eaten one, never seen one, never held one or anything. And so I was finding all kinds of other mushrooms, but I didn't find a single morel. And but then like other plants, like I went out, and another plant that I'd never found before was these little fiddleheads. And so I was on a hike, and I used this technique that I was watching a documentary on like different energy techniques that Native Americans used to survive. And one of the things they would do was expand their luminous energy field out really, really far when they would go to hunt. And so and I don't know which tribe it was, but instead of saying like, I'm going to go fishing or I'm going to go hunt, the way that it translates is I'm going to where the fish are, or I'm going to where the deer are. And so they cast out their luminous energy field, and then they're able to feel, and they just walk over to that point where they got that ping energetically, and they go, okay, there's the animal. So I don't hunt, obviously.
Oh, you're fine. Go ahead.
But I was looking for wild foraged edibles. So I said, if it works for that, why wouldn't it work for plants? So I was out in the forest, and I sent out my energy field, and I just really became aware of everything, and had the intention that I was looking for like mushrooms, but I got this specific like boom, like ping, and like a GPS. I knew, and it was like probably like 100 feet away, but I knew the exact direction and where I felt it. I couldn't see it, but I walked, made my way over some logs, turned the corner, and right there, it wasn't a mushroom, but it was fiddleheads, another prized edible. And I'd never found one before, but I got that specific ping, and it was the first fiddlehead I'd ever seen in nature like that I'd ever recognized. And so then I was already introduced to that energy. And from then I was able to cast out my energy field. And then I'm like, okay, there's one here, 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 and here. And I could walk over to each spot and find the fiddleheads.
Now, to throw one of your questions from the other day at you, now were the fiddleheads already there, or was you saying that they were there? What created them there?
Both.
Right.
Yes, we're continuously manifesting and perceiving our reality in one seamless loop.
Yeah, there's one thing that like people who try to predict lottery numbers, for example, one of the books, like if you read like The Seven Rays by Ernest Wood or some of the esoteric work from Alice Bailey, it's not so much predicting as you are declaring your role to the universe. So instead of trying to predict what the numbers are going to be, you declare to the universe, this is what the winning lottery numbers are going to be. And then that's what makes it so. But if you try to predict, then you're putting it outside of you because it's not your will anymore. It's just coincidence, right?
Right.
So next time you're looking to win, and I use that a little bit at in Canada. I was there with my wife, her mom, and her grandma. We went to like a little Canadian trip, and we were at a casino. And I would just play, and then every once in a while we get a hit from spirit. Like this is the one where you can like triple up or quadruple up on your bet, right? And every time I did that, I would win. And they're like, "This is amazing." I'm like, "Well, I'm just watching the little light telling me when to when to bet up for." And it wasn't like we won a ton of money, but it was enough to buy breakfast the next day and go out and like not have to spend any money out of pocket. So it was pretty fun.
At one point, I was way back when I was first just kind of going through my awakening process, but I was realizing that I had the ability to like manifest things in a really, and like you said, when we're first starting out, we have that beginner's mindset and we're just learning things. Sometimes our manifestation, our psychic abilities or whatever are like so much more powerful in the beginning because we're just kind of a blank slate, right? And so I was just learning like I can play with reality and manifest things. And I remember I was playing cards with my mother, and I don't remember what the game we were playing was, but I needed to like manifest a specific, like a color of a card or like a number or something. And I kept going like in my head, okay, 7 of hearts. And I'd like pull the card and it was 7 of hearts. And so I kept winning over and over and over again. And my mom got really frustrated. And so I remember at the time I didn't know how to explain any of this or talk about any of this. So she was like, "How do you?" She's like, "This can't be coincidence. How are you winning so much?" And I just like blurted out, "I'm like, I'm counting cards," but I wasn't counting cards. I had no idea how to do that.
Oh, similar story. This is actually a story from my wife. We were taking a class on Ernest Wood, the 7 rays, and one of the things that we were doing in the class is you had an exercise where we paired up, and she was paired up with someone else, not me, and you had to write down the card that you were going to will the other person to draw. And so they would be shuffling, and she like I got like the right card but the wrong suit, for example. But for hers, it just like in your case, 7 of hearts or whatever it was. Like the guy flips it over, and when she looks, you could just see like this, like, oh my gosh, look at her face. And she flips over the paper and it was an exact match. It's like, but that's what we're talking about. You're declaring your choice to the universe. It's not a question, may I? It's like, this is what I'm choosing, universe.
Right.
And the universe says yes. The pitfall that we sometimes fall into is we're not consistent with our choice. And all these little moments, it's like this place of congruency where you like go, boom, there could be no other way for it to happen than the way it happens. But when you're like, well, maybe it would be nice if the universe brought it to me, then like that's one thing. Or I choose something and 10 seconds later I'm choosing something different. And 10 seconds later I'm choosing something different. And the universe is doing its best to shift the cosmos to bring it to you, but you never make up your mind. You change your mind every 10 seconds. So it's like if you're consistent with your declaration and you do your own part, like if you want to create those mushrooms that you were going to find, but you never went looking for them, that wouldn't have worked out, would it? So you put your will into the universe and then you do your part, which is to go on the nature walk.
So going into another story before I lose this and it leaves my mind forever. So recent one with this pandemic thing we're experiencing. This was, I don't know how many weeks ago now, but things were starting to get a little more serious. And I think they were just in the beginning where they were closing down in Ohio, the restaurants and bars. And then like the next day it was like pools and bowling alleys and things. And we were getting, and I'm a massage therapist. So I was working, and I will be working at a chiropractor's office again when all this is over. But I was working there, and I just remember thinking it's probably not a good idea for me to continue to work on clients, because if I have someone who's immunocompromised and I'm carrying it and I don't know, God forbid I were to spread it to them, and I didn't even want to risk that. So I sat down and I talked to the chiropractor there, and I was like, listen, I probably shouldn't be massaging. And, he was kind of like, well, they haven't specifically said massage therapist, so we're going to keep going until like we have to shut down. And I'm an independent contractor, so I have the choice, or I could say, I'm done. I'm not massaging until all this is over. But I really didn't want to have to make that choice. It would have been much easier just with the circumstances and communicating things if like the governor were to make the announcement that massage therapy is closed. Would have made things a lot easier. So I'm sitting there at home and I'm going back and forth in my head. I'm like, do I just tell him, the chiropractor, that I'm not working, or do I wait another day and see? And then I sat there and I'm like, you know what? Why am I sitting here juggling with this in my mind when I could just manifest it and create it? So I sat down and really clearly, I kept putting it out there. Tomorrow, because I had the day off and then another day where I had clients. So I said, tomorrow, Governor Mike DeWine at 2 p.m. on his address where he does the public address, he's going to declare that all massage therapy in Ohio is shut down until further notice. And kept over and over. I was like in the shower and over again. 2 p.m. massage therapy shut down. He makes the announcement. 2 p.m. just boom, 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 over and over and over, sending out these waves of energy, and then set it out, and then just kind of was present and forgot about it. and then the next day comes, and I was like, oh well, I don't think I should wait for him to make the announcement, because he's going to. If I need to give my clients as much notice as I can if I'm going to reschedule on them. So I called the hotline for coronavirus on ohio.gov, and I called the lady and I was like, listen, I know he's got some things that he's going to be closing down in the future. Is there any way you can tell me whether or not he plans to close massage therapy in the next day or two? And she goes, it's already closed. I go, what? I didn't hear that. And she goes, yeah, it's already shut down. And I said, are you sure? I was following his Twitter. I watched his public address and everything. I didn't hear him say massage therapy. Like, no, yeah, massage therapy is supposed to be shut down. So I was like, huh. So I went and I couldn't find it anywhere. And then, so I called the chiropractor and I was like, I just got off the phone with a lady from the government. She said massage therapy shut down. And he didn't want to believe me. He was like, well, we're going to keep going until we specifically see it in writing. So I hang up with him. And then I got an email like right then from the state medical board that said, all massage therapists, please cease business immediately until further notice. And then right after that on his Twitter it was posted right there, massage therapy is shut down. And and it wasn't until like that night, for some reason, I usually pick up on this stuff right away, but I was sitting there that night and I was like, I put that out there. I declared that and it happened. And then just deep gratitude, thank you. Not that I wanted to shut down.
Right.
And because
I was just thinking the rest of the massage therapists probably weren't happy.
now I want to do massage therapy all the time, as often as possible. But with the current circumstances, like I said, just would have been way easier if I wasn't, because I was going to have to make the decision either way for the safety of my clients. So better to be a decision that, I didn't have to personally come into conflict with the chiropractor over.
Gotcha.
So it created more ease in my life around the situation because it was going to happen either way.
I'm about to share a video, a link. There is, if you Google neuroscientist access bars, the neuroscientist who was doing the topographical brain maps of what happens on a bar session. At the end of the video, he's talking about a secondary nervous system that rides in the lymphatic system that had these 7 ganglion nerves that come to the top of the skin or whatnot, and they happen to line up with the chakras. But the reason I'm posting it and why it's relevant to what you were talking about is that he was saying, like, when you hold a thought for a certain period of time, I forget the exact amount of seconds, but they're showing that on these ganglion nerves that all this energy is pulling into the body and the being or whatnot, and then after a certain period of time it goes out exponentially greater back out into the universe. And he was saying that they're starting to map the process of manifestation, to map the process of drawing this to you. So it's just a cool little video. You can kind of skip to the end to get to the part that I'm referring to, but it's certainly relevant with how you spend a certain period of time going over that, and then you let it go and you forgot about it. You set the intention like a bow and arrow, off it goes, and then you just watch the result.
Yeah, because if we sit there and we're continually, we call it like set it and forget it, right? As one of the terms I heard. So, but if you're sitting there and you've done the work to manifest, and then you sit back and you go back and you're like, okay, when's it going to show? You're thinking about it like, oh, it's going to show up again, manifesting. And then like, if you're constantly focused on it, then again, it's like one of those situations where you start to like put handcuffs on the universe, and subconsciously we start to develop more expectations around how it's going to show up, etc. So much better to set the intention with that powerful focus, and then just be in the moment and just enjoy life and wait for it to show up.
Yep. Anybody just joining us, I posted a link and I went to Casey's page. Yours is still showing friends, by the way, instead of public.
Oh, is it?
I had to change mine too. But I posted the link to StreamYard. If you want to come on and share one of your stories, that's what today is about, is offering inspiration, telling these magical moments. The one that I want to share now is kind of what started this whole process for me. There was a couple things leading up to it with my aunt and taking me to my first psychic fair. Even the first fair I ever went to, I won this beautiful crystal from Goddess Elite. And little did I know how involved I would be with that business. But there was one of the Lilydale mediums named Barbara Sansom. She was in Cleveland at a place called Shamans, which is on the East Side, Center for Holistic Energy and Applied Metaphysics, I believe is what it's called. And I went to get my very first reading. That I didn't even really know what a reading was at that point. And she's going through and she's getting me past life stuff that all happened to match my Renaissance costumes, and telling me all this information. Everything was right on the money up until this last thing. She says, and your grandfather's here, and he says that there's a knife that he wants you to have. I'm like, no, there was a belt buckle, but my brother stole it for drug money. And she's like, nope, he says it's a knife, and she's describing it and everything. And if I was at my office, I would show you this knife now. I go home and I tell my mom, oh, backwards for one quick second. At the very end of the reading, she's like, what are you really here to know? Are you psychic? Yes, incredibly so. She's like, go to Lilydale and train. was the last thing she told me. So I kind of left. I get home and I tell my mom about the reading, and she goes, "Oh my God." I'm like, "What?" She's like, "I totally forgot about it." And she went upstairs, gets this knife, and it's just like she described, the handle, the hilt, the case, everything. And she said, "Well, when your brother took it, like I chose that I was going to give this to you, because it was actually a present that was intended for someone else, but she was going to give that to me instead because what was intended for me was gone." And I was just like, "Holy shit!" And then after that, I'm like, "All right, well, I'm heading to Lilydale," and that's when I started to take the 2-year program, and really started to get some tools to access intuition and healing and all that good stuff. But it was all started from a thing with my aunt that led to a reading that. And this whole thing precipitated out. And where would I be today if I hadn't started that? Who knows? So maybe something totally, well, of course, something totally different. But it was like that little magical moment that one seemingly insignificant thing in a reading changed the trajectory of my entire life.
Speaking of manifestation stories or magical moments that change the trajectory of a person's life, I love to share this with people when I first am introducing them to the idea of manifestation, because to me it's just a story that is it's a manifestation story that's just too specific for me or anyone who is really open to listening to sort of deny or have doubt about. And so at the time I was learning this technique, we called it reality creating, but it was a manifestation technique. So it was Easter Sunday.
Oh, how timely.
Right.
It's coming up.
And my parents had gone to relatives' house and were celebrating. I don't know what reason. I stayed behind and was home. And so I decided I was going to go up to the beach because I didn't have anything else to do. It wasn't a particularly like nice day to be at the beach or anything around that time of year. It's usually not. And it was Easter also. So not a lot of people are out going to the beach on Easter, I don't think. On top of the weather being bad, people are just with family or doing something relaxing. Anyway, so as I was driving up there, I was really wanting to work more with like practicing my advanced energy techniques and all the stuff I was learning with energy manipulation and healing. And I didn't really know anyone in my life that I could practice that stuff with. So as I was driving up there, I started to remember that reality creating technique. So I just started sending out these waves of, I'm going to go to the beach. I'm going to meet someone who's super energy sensitive that I can practice these energy healing and techniques with. And so just for fun, at the end, I started throwing out there, and it's going to be a beautiful woman, because why not? See how specific I can be with this manifestation. So I just kept putting it out there. I'm going to meet this beautiful woman, and she's going to be very sensitive to energy, and we're going to just have fun practicing and playing with energy together. And so I'm driving up there. I get to the beach, and at first I'm looking around at, like, there are a few people there, and I'm like, is that the person? Should I talk to them? I don't. And I'm like, okay, you know what? Just relax. Just go for a walk on the beach and enjoy. So I get down to the actual beach area, and there's this one of the piers is like the piers me and my friends would always hang out on when we were younger in high school and all this stuff. And I walk down, and at the end of that pier, there's a couple of people too far away from me to even see, to make out like who they were. But I saw one of those lanterns go off where you light a candle in it, and the like lantern floats up into the sky. Mm-hmm. And I see them light one of those off, and it flies up away from them. And I was like, I just got this thing from Spirit. I was like, go talk to them. I was like, okay. So I went over, I had to talk to them, walk up. It was this guy and a woman. And I just blurted out. I was like, oh, is that one of those lantern like things? And she goes, yeah, yeah. And I said, that would be a really cool healing exercise. And she goes, yeah. And I go, I'm an energy healer. And she goes, me too. And then I was like, can I show you something? And I just went and I started showing her these energy techniques. She was super sensitive, and we just spent the day hanging out and playing with energy. So it was, and then I just sat there. I came home and was thinking, I'm like, that was my big, wow, we really are the creators of our reality moment. Because think of that, Easter at the beach. I'm going to go to this beach, meet someone super sensitive to energy that I can practice energy with. It's a beautiful woman. And all of it right there. So now to go on to like that story changing my trajectory. Some time passed. I hadn't really talked to her in a while. And then I was just kind of working that crappy job I was talking about in yesterday's podcast. And I was like, how am I going to make the healing and all the stuff that I do into a full-time career? And somehow we reconnected over like Facebook or something, and then got together and we were hanging out, and she was like, hey, can my boyfriend come join us? And he plays the didgeridoo and all this stuff. And so we were just hanging out.
I was thinking I knew who this was just from the energy of it. Now I know I do.
Yes, he did. So, and then he was talking to me about how he does energy healing and shamanic work and all this stuff, and that he's going to school for massage therapy. And we got into this conversation about how massage therapy is like a healing modality that's really well established in the States. And if you do massage therapy, then you can kind of segue people into your energy healing just through that. You can funnel people in. And so it's like, and he told me which school he was going to. And I was like, I'm just going to go check it out. Went to check it out. Just kind of impulsively applied, got accepted, started going to school, and that led me to here.
That's awesome.
So yeah, if I hadn't sat there and manifested that magical moment right there, I probably wouldn't be a massage therapist or doing healing or any of this stuff full time. I mean, who knows? I may have showed up in a different way, but I know that in doing that, it definitely accelerated it at the very least.
Just seeing like how we met different people and how interwoven our little network is. It's like,
I know.
Wow, it's pretty crazy.
Isn't it?
I love it.
Yeah. And same thing, like, meeting you, and then, these same people I'm talking about, and then reconnecting with you to do the shamanic stuff. And even that, I was receiving a lot of signs from the universe. I was working massage and just kind of doing the massage thing. I wanted to be doing more energy healing, but I wasn't really taking any action to like further it or anything. And then I started to get some serious messages from spirit. Like my mother, who I would talk from time to time about energy healing and stuff, but she started to like send me stuff, and she like was talking to me about, I just watched this documentary on Netflix called Heal, and she's like, you need to watch it. It's so cool. They should talk about energy healing and all this stuff, and it's like right up your alley. And so I watched that, and then I'm even watching the show Vikings. I love the show Vikings on History Channel. And like, even from that, like just the way I was watching it, certain things that were happening, I was getting like signs from like all different directions, even from TV shows and stuff. Like, it's time to focus on your spiritual path. Time to like really like, it's time to start walking. And so after watching Heal, I'm like, you know what? I need to learn more, because I can always further myself. And so I just went into Google and typed in holistic healing near me, and there were a couple websites that popped up, and I was like, I don't really resonate with those people, and so almost was about to give up. And then I saw holistic health and healing website, and I clicked on the link, and your face was there, and I go, I recognize that dude. I'm like, I met that dude years and years ago at this spiritual shop in Fairview Park, and we had this awesome conversation. And so I reached out. I think I booked a session with their online scheduling software with Hank. So all Hank has at this point is my name, and I remembered him. And something happened where, with whatever time I scheduled, he had to call me, and he asked if it was okay if I could reschedule. And he calls and he said, "Hey, is this Casey McBride?" And he goes, and he said, "We met years and years back at the spiritual shop, didn't we?" I said, "Yeah, how did you remember that?" And you just remembered based off my name. And I was like, wow.
I don't know too many anybody's. Nick Wright stood out. But I remember it was kind of, I don't remember the full conversation. I know it was great, and we were doing different energy type of things too, just talking, and really made a good connection. But that was like 10 years, almost 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Not quite 10 years, like eight or 9 years ago, and came full circle back, and now we're going down the shamanic path. And let me tell you, did I ever tell you the story of how I got into shamanism? Like the actual story that helped made me find Zane?
I don't think so.
So one of my dear friends is Dave Orlasky, and he was my roommate at Fellowships of the Spirit. So now see how these are connecting. So I'm at Fellowships of the Spirit. I'm connecting with Dave, and I'm, have Anya, and we're starting a family and everything. And he was still a single income, no kids. And he was traveling the world with a guy named Ken Harsh. And Ken Harsh is like the grandfather of crystals. And Ken would take people to different places around the world on like little rock buying trips and things that he would take people. And his only goal was to get enough money for the trip so he could go for free to buy the stuff he wants to sell at shows. And so it was like dirt trip trips to Peru, to Egypt, Hawaii, Arizona. He has a rock buying trip. And so he went to Peru first, Dave, and this chumpy stone. Chumpies are these special stones. Originally, they were shells, and there's 5 of them, and they're for weaving belts of energy. But when the Spanish came in, then they made it 7 stones because they didn't know about Nawis. They made it for the chakras, and then they realized, well, the more stones we make, the more stones we can sell to the tourists. And so like they made a 12-piece set. But Dave didn't just buy a set. He went to each village and like got 1 stone from this village and 1 stone from this village and 1 stone from this village. So they were all from different places, but they looked like they were carved together. And he was getting the set for himself. Then he goes from Peru to Egypt. They were in like the Great Pyramid. He's in Hawaii. He's taking these stones everywhere and doing ceremony with Ken. And then he comes back to fellowships, and we're talking, and his spirit tells him, give him to Hank. And he's like, really, spirit? Really? and so he only gives me 7 of the stones at this point, and he keeps like the 8-pointed one and the 2 little hands. So it's a 10-point set, not a 12-point set. But they do make 12-pointed ones now, which is just to sell more rocks at this point. And so he gives me the 7 stones, and I'm like, well, what do you do with them? And he's like, I have no idea. And so I started Googling, and I found Zane. And I say, hey, Zane, I reached out to him, like, I would love to learn how to use these chumpy stones. Is that something you could teach? He's like, absolutely, but it's part of an apprenticeship. And it's like the 6th weekend or something like that. I'm like, well, how many people do I need for an apprenticeship? And he tells me, how much he charges and how many people we need and all that. So I started hosting Zane for like 2 years before we did the apprenticeship, just 1-day and 2-day workshops to build enough interest so I had enough people that want to do this apprenticeship with me. so after the first bringing it back full circle, after I get the training and I know how to do the chompiawe, which is the belting ceremony, I called Dave and say, hey, Dave, I learned how to use those stones that you gave me so many years ago. It was such a big part of my life. Thank you so much. Come over to the office. I would love to gift you a ceremony of what these stones are actually for. And so he comes over, and then up until that point, I never knew he had got the stones for himself. I always thought he intentionally got them for me and brought it as a present. And he's just like, and he brought, when he came for the ceremony, he gives me the final 3. He gives me the 8-pointed one and the 2 hands. And he's just like, yeah, he's like, I didn't really want to give them to you, but Spirit told me I had to. And he's like, and now this is the rest of them. Because it was like kind of symbolic of like the whole cycle becoming complete.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, like what amazing magic. Like one little magical moment leads to another, and it's kind of like that golden tapestry. Like what amazing creation are we making with all these apparent separated threads that are really coming together to make this beautiful reality and creation that we're in.
Now, and you had shared that story with me, but you shared some bits there that I'd never heard before, so that was really magical to hear about that. Yeah, but yeah, speaking of stones, this reminded me of a little story. So this was 3-4 years back, so I could be wrong on that, something like that. But at this point, I was just kind of where was I working? I think I had just graduated massage school, but was working a job where I wasn't really making much money or anything, and I wasn't really, I don't think I was mentally quite ready to start my career yet, and decided I was going to do more to take care of myself and connect with meditation and connect with the earth more. And so one thing I came across on YouTube was this rock balancing, and it's not just like stacking stones, but with the rock balancing I'm talking about, you take different stones and you balance them on these like super fine points. So you could be sitting there for like 20 minutes just trying to get one stone to balance on this really fine point on top of the other one. And so I just started playing with that, and I was doing it. And then I hadn't talked to my cousin, who at the time, the reason I hadn't talked to him in a while is he'd been traveling kind of all over the world. He went and like walked the Camino in Spain, and he kayaked the Mississippi River from source to sea, and he'd like been to all these different national parks around the country. And I always thought that stuff was cool, but at the time I had the mindset of like, I'm not that. That's not me. I would never be the kind of person to do those kind of adventures. And so I just thought it was cool. I made this little rock stack, and I took a picture. And I just hadn't really talked to my cousin much in a while. And I just sent him that picture and I was like, hey, isn't this cool? And he immediately responded, come with me to Colorado. And I go, what? So he messages me and he's like, last time I was in Colorado, we were in the rivers around there and I was doing that rock balancing. And so he's like, I think you're supposed to come with me to Colorado. And so we started talking about it. And again, I didn't really even have any, I think I had $300 to my name. And I was like, I can't afford it. And he's like, listen, I don't travel like other people travel. He's like, $300, we can get from here to Colorado. We're going to go out to the desert in Arizona, backpack to the desert. And I got that. I took that as a sign, like through that thing that I discovered, that connection with the earth. I got the sign of like, I'm supposed to go on this adventure. And I just went with it and I went with him. And it was like the most magical thing that had ever happened in terms of like expanding my horizons and pushing myself past my limits. And, I climbed mountains that I never thought I would climb a mountain before in my life, and experienced so many incredible things, made amazing connections, and just went on incredible adventures for like a whole year, almost. Like it was a couple of years, but there was time in between where we weren't traveling, but we just like kind of went all over and had all amazing adventures. But after that first trip where we went out and came back, I came back to that job where I wasn't really making much money. And I realized, I'm like, you know what, this isn't going to lead anywhere. And I got this sense that like the company itself, like the woman wasn't there mentally in the place where she was trying to manifest abundance for that business. I later found out she just wanted to run away to Hawaii and like do her own thing. So I got this sense of like, it's time to get out of there. And so I came to her and I told her at one point, I'm like, listen, I'm gonna resign for now. So did that, and then went and did a little bit more traveling. Came back and I was like, you know what? I've done the traveling now. There was time in between this. So then there was a whole bunch of traveling, doing all this stuff, and then came back and I was like, you know what? It's time for me to really start focusing on my massage therapy career. And I was like, I think the way to do that is to work at a chiropractor's office. It seems like a much better situation than the other kinds of places I've worked so far. So I just got back from traveling, was in a great mindset, and I just pulled up Indeed and I was like, I'm going to apply for a chiropractor's office. Applied for a couple, heard back from a guy, and I put it out there. I'm going to get this job. And was in such a great place because of all the traveling that I was able to really clearly, I put it out there that I was going to get it and I wanted it, but I also felt so good that if I didn't get it, it's fine. Whatever spirit has in store for me, I'm going to be completely open to that. And went for the interview, and it was like, but he had told me he interviewed 18 people before me, and then I came and he was like, that's the guy. And that launched my massage. That was the first time I actually started to build clients and transferred over into my success today. So
That's cool. And I think Mike wanted to come on. He said that it wouldn't let him stream. And I did just post in there, if you are wanting to join us, it does need to be Chrome or Firefox. I just posted a link about StreamYard and joining, and it gives all the BDPs of how to get on without a problem. So if you have been trying to get on and you couldn't, it may be the browser. And
Opera GX also works for those of you who use that one, because that's what I use.
I've never even heard that one before.
I think it's more for like gamers or something. Maybe not, but my brother set it up for me. It's really cool. I like the layout and look of it, but you can do like a lot, like some more with it than you're able to do with other browsers.
Cool. Well, send me that off the grid, and I will definitely take a look at that.
Will too.
And if you're just joining us, or if you've caught the entire broadcast, we're talking about magical moments, and kind of going back, if you're looking to receive that magic in your life, instead of asking the universe why, like if you're not having those magic moments and you're asking universe, why is this happening? The universe delivers to you more experiences of why it's happening. So instead ask, well, what could I do differently to be open to receiving the magic in my life? And see how asking a question like that, like what else is possible, what door that might open for you to be able to have those experiences.
And listen. Be listening for them, be watching for them, because they're we got it. So do you want to put that up on the
screen?
Sure.
So when it comes to manifesting, for me, it has been something that goes on a constant back burner in the back of my head. I figured out what the goal is. but at the same time, I'm not manifesting what is exactly next. I feel comfortable in my flow with the universe to just sit tight and look for sparkling. I like that, sparkling opportunities. That will be the next step. Do you have any tips or comments on balancing manifestation versus letting life destiny happen?
Hmm. So I would say that whether you're aware of it and choosing to do so or not, we're always creating our reality. So that's the thing, people say like, I just want to go along with the people. Sometimes people get afraid, right? I think I've encountered this. People that say, well, I'm afraid to really focus on manifesting because what if like that wasn't the plan that the universe had for me, right? Or it wasn't what I was supposed to experience or whatever their idea of it might be. But we're always constantly manifesting this reality. So whether you're consciously doing so and choosing to create a beautiful, peaceful paradise on earth for yourself, or you're just sitting back and letting your mind do whatever it wants to do, you're equally creating your reality. Why let the subconscious do whatever it wants to do? Why not play with it and consciously create an incredible reality for yourself? Because either way, you're still creating it. So, choose to consciously do so, I would say.
And a couple of things that stand out is one, the energy behind the word goal. And you may or may not have met it this way, but if you think of football or any sport, when you hit the goal, all the energy stops and it shifts the other direction. So a different energy that you could look at is what is your target? Because targets you can consistently move and keep your momentum with wherever you're going. So just a little bit of energy. I'm a big word person and asking questions. And then instead of just waiting to notice things, the question you could ask and then follow the energy of it, following those little sparkles, as you put it, is what could I do today to help the universe actualize this instantly with total ease? Or whatever question you like. But putting something like that, it's like, okay, universe, what part could I play to create this instantly? Because the universe will do it. But if we're not doing our part, it is a little bit slower than it needs to be.
And pay attention when the universe is communicating with you. Like, for example, in the story that I gave, where I had put it out there that I was going to meet this person to practice energy with, I was walking on the beach and saw that lantern fly up, and I went, that caught my attention, and I immediately knew I'm supposed to go over and talk to them. So if in that moment I was to sit there and go, I don't know, I don't want to interrupt those people, and that there's just a lantern, so whatever, I'll walk on, maybe it's the next person. But because I went in that moment and I recognized that as a sign from spirit and I just went with it. And then same thing, as I was talking, I wouldn't go at this time in my life, at least, I would never have just gone up to a complete stranger that I just met and said something like, that would be a cool healing exercise and I'm an energy healer. But spirit gave me the impulse to do that. And I just went along with it. And so when we get these signs as we're working with manifesting or whatever, when the universe gives us these little hey, here's the opportunity, we need to immediately sort of jump on that and go along with it, because that sends the message to the universe, yes, I'm willing to receive this and I'm willing to work with you and follow your guidance. Whereas if we receive that communication and we question it and we hesitate, then the universe is like, okay, well, I'm giving it to you and you're sitting there hesitating and not following along with it. So it must really not be that important to you. So I'm going to stop.
Right. The visual that Spirit just gave me was being on a rowboat and the universe is on one side and you're on the other. And if the universe is the only one paddling, you just go in a circle. And so if you both do your part, then you continue on with whatever target that you're looking to actualize in your life. And I use the word actualization, manifestation. They're very much akin. Manifestation is the how it shows up. Actualization is that it shows up. And sometimes if we get caught up with the how it shows up, it can take us out of the space of what we could receive now. Because the how, okay, yeah, you can receive that, but maybe that's going to take 2 weeks or longer or something like that. It certainly can happen. But if you just say, how can it happen? I'm open to the universe's infinite possibilities, then you'll find that sometimes it can create more rapidly for you or instantly.
And that's that set it and forget it thing. Anytime I hear stories about manifestation of things that people are really focusing on and really it's important to them that they manifest it, it's always when they stop and they relax and they just are kind of all right, I'm just going to go with the flow. That's when it shows up. definitely. And I love that metaphor of the rowboat. That's
Oh,
beautiful.
that's the first time I ever used it. I just got this picture. I'm like, all right, Spirit, I'll use that.
That's really beautiful.
There was something else I was going to bring up with that too. Oh, with intention, it's kind of like when you move your arm from left to right, you're not sitting there going boo, 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 boo. If you just do it, and intention is like a bow and arrow. That's how Zane describes it. Is you take the bow and arrow, you launch it, and then you step back and you just observe what the thing is, and then you launch another bow and arrow, and then you observe, and you don't have to sit there focusing on it 24/7. And, that in hoodoo or magical work, you could do like a candle every day, and for a couple minutes every day, you light the candle and you just sit in contemplation and being the energy, feeling what it's like that you have actualized the energy that you're looking to create. And what you're doing is you're focusing on creating the energy vibration in you of what you're looking to actualize and create for yourself. And then like attracts like in the one world of oneality. And then that's kind of like law of attraction type of stuff. Mike's jumping topics on us. He says, what about the apprenticeship? What about it, Mike? It's going to be, for those of you who don't know, every other year, I host Zane for a shaman apprenticeship program. And we were going to be starting next weekend. And because of the stay-at-home order, we have pushed back the actual in-person start date. But we are, and I'll get the link for it, Zane is going to be offering a 6-week course of connecting to the sacredness around you, connecting to and embodying it. And for the people in the apprenticeship, it's included. And for people who aren't willing to commit or unable to commit for a 7 weekend over 7 months deep dive into shamanism, it's an opportunity for in the 6-week course, you'll build a Taiwantan mesa. You'll have field trips or homework where you have to go out into nature and collect different stones and do different exercises. And but it's a whole standalone course, so you wouldn't have to necessarily do the whole 7-week thing. That's a whole standalone thing, and I'll post a link to that if anybody's interested in it. But that's where it stands, Mike. And I know I still need to get you the link for the form that you wanted to fill out. So,
and are they like Zoom meetings? Are they live? Are they pre-recorded?
What my intention is to live stream it using this software to a private Facebook group, and then people can come on. If they have a question, they'll join the room, except for Mike, who can't get it to work. But we could use Zoom too. But I kind of like how this program works with less of a popcorn style thing like what Zoom has. So that's kind of how I'm thinking to do it. But it's going to be live content, and then either Zoom or StreamYard, and then homework each week. And it's going to be on Thursday nights. It's going to start with the new moon on April 23rd, and then it's going to go for 6 weeks. It will be finishing up just before the last weekend in May, which is when we scheduled the second apprenticeship weekend. And so hopefully we will start on time in May if everything has simmered down a little bit. And we're going to be doubling up on some of the initiations, because the idea is if we can double up on the initiations and supplement with virtual, then we won't have to use the backup weekend in November, but we do have an extra weekend built in. And if we end up having another stay-at-home order during another month, then we're going to be flexible and see how we can continue to create how the program will look. It will still happen. It's just a question, like if we have to bump a weekend, we may have to double up or add a December weekend or something like that. And the link that I thought I had ready wasn't ready. So I can get it from Jotform, so I'll post it from that. So, but if anybody else has, especially if you either have a magical moment you want to share, if you have a question about manifestation, that would be great to post, because we're kind of in the wrap-up mode here. Or if you want to come on, that's still that link. Mike, maybe you need a pot and pock 5911 that not being able to get on.
And I was just going to say oh, wow, my audio did something weird there. To kind of wrap up all the, hit the subscribe button, like all that stuff. And it's not Sunday. I'm doing another shamanic meditation, which will be live streamed to Stir Crazy, or no, not to Shaman's Way YouTube channel, my Facebook, a couple other places. Shaman's Way, yeah. And check it out if you're interested in connecting with the magic of the universe in a really direct experiential way. Shamanic meditations are an excellent way to do that. So join in. Also check out Shaman's Way YouTube and subscribe to check out the other meditations that I've done. And I also channel messages from spirit and all that kinds of fun stuff. So check that stuff out.
Going to grab your station right now here.
Awesome.
As soon as I find it. I have, now that I know about YouTube channels, it's like, I have so many of these now all of a sudden, like overnight. Shaman's Way. And thank you. I see we got a couple more subscribers for Stir Crazy Shamans. So thank you very much. That's where we always are going to be posting. This live stream will be on this YouTube. And then here is the one for Casey. If you want, oops, I did not do the right one. So I don't know what that's going to give you if you try to click that one, because that was supposed to be for his YouTube studio.
Oh, here, that's right. I've been here. I can do this now. I got it. I'll post it here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll let him post that one. Any final closing comments or questions or anything anybody else wants to share that are out there? If you're catching this on the replay, we right now during social distancing period, during the week we're doing this at 1. On the weekends we're coming in a little bit earlier, like 9:30 on the weekends. And even when things go back to, if they go back to like whatever the new normal is, I think we could probably still do a morning one depending on how your schedule pans out. Because like when I do work my corporate gig, unless I have a client in the morning, I'm usually free at 9 or 9:30.
Yeah, I could probably do morning, so we could work it out. Yeah.
Yeah. So no matter what, this is going to be a regular thing, you know?
Yeah. Even if it's not every day of the week after this, well, I think we'll at least do like a few a week. We'll try, I would imagine.
No, try.
Right?
Do or do not.
We will. We shall do so. I'm declaring it into the universe.
Oh, and Faith asked, when are we doing the talk with the medium today? That's going to be tonight at 7:00. For those of you who know Angie Hewitt Apt, she is a registered medium in Lilydale, and I was on with her Monday, kind of promoting her past life regression workshop that we're virtually hosting for her tomorrow. And we had such a blast that we're doing a message. It's going to be more messages today. It's going to be less conversation and interviewing, but we're just going to bring people on with us and do messages. And
maybe I could join in for that and have some fun.
Yeah, so she's more the medium, but I do what I call is I am a medium also. Not shirt size, with spirit, but but I do what I do is more like intuitive facilitation. So I'm all about empowering people to know that they know, and so I ask questions or offer different insights to let them come to their own awareness about their truths and things like that. So we work a little bit differently, though we all both went to fellowships for training and stuff like that. I just want to more the healing route and have a different focus. Plus, I don't like talking to dead people. Well, some of them are okay. Some of them are.
So yeah, I think we can start to kind of, any last thoughts or anything to wrap it up on magical moments and manifestation?
No, well, see, now you're the one asking the question first. Yeah, so allowance, and also just doing your part. That rowboat scenario is like, that's perfect from spirit. Like if you're not paddling too, you're going in a circle and you're not getting a lot of change in your life. You're in that cyclical pattern. And I call like astrology, it's all about cycles, right? It is the autopilot of the universe. And when Pinocchio isn't conscious, all he's doing is he's going with the strings of the puppeteers. He's going with the strings of the puppeteers, right? But once you become conscious, you don't have to go with those energies anymore. You can make your own choice and break those cycles. And so break the cycle of that going in a circle and step into allowance and choosing whatever you really would like to receive in your life.
Love it. And I love that you started that with no. Anything you want to share? No. Here it is. Like we were talking about the other day, how the Dalai Lama does that.
I didn't even notice that. Did I really? I said no.
Yeah. So do you have any last tidbits? You go, no. And then you share your whole thing. I would definitely say also recognize when these things do happen, validate them, and give thanks for them. Because when we do that, we're sending the message to spirit that this is important to us, and where your attention goes, energy flows, and you'll receive more of whatever it is you recognize, give gratitudes towards. So yeah, gratitude's huge, and recognize the magical moments as they happen so that you continue to receive more and more.
Very cool.
And thank you so much for your energy and your attention. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Nike. Do you want to start yours? Because I don't remember which one it was that you liked.
Oh, let's do this. Ready? Are we ready for magic?
We're ready, and then I'll play mine afterwards. This is what Shaman's having fun with technology. Bye, everybody.
Bye.